Hey, Magic friends, welcome back. This is your captain speaking here on Captain Class MTG, and today we are going to talk about some of the best cards coming to Commander that's probably going to see some of the biggest impacts. And what I mean when I say that is probably going to be in every deck that particular color is played, kind of like, Soul Ring, except for the color the card actually is, because Soul Ring's just in everything. Anyway, moving on. So, with that being said, don't forget to like and subscribe to keep your unsponsored channel going. So here we go, taking a stab at what's going to be, in my opinion, the best Commander cards from March of the Machines. We're going to start off with an honorable mention. That's right, City on Fire. 3 red, 5 colorless. It has Convoke. If a source would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals triple that damage instead. This is better than Emancipation. It does cost 2 more. However, Convoke could easily make it cost as much as Emancipation, and this doesn't target just red spells. There's lots of spells out there that say red permit this, red damage that, yada yada yada. This just says damage dealt, and it says triple that damage. So this is an honorable mention. It's probably going to see some play in most decks that have red, but honestly, if those decks aren't trying to do some kind of token creature-ish type strategy, it's going to be hard to get this out for, 8 mana. Unless maybe you're playing a green-red deck and you're just mana ramping your brains out, which is also very possible. So, also lots of rocks in the format can make this a lot easier to cast as well. So, I still think it's only an honorable mention. Because cards like this do see play. They may come out strong on the gates, but they tend to pull back how much play they see as time goes on, as people tend to have a harder time getting these things to actually go off. So, now, starting off with the top 5, we have at number 5, that's right, Breach the Multiverse. So, 2 black and 5 sorcery. Each player mills 10 cards. For each player, choose a creature or planeswalker card in that player's graveyard, put those cards onto the battlefield under your control, then each creature you control becomes a Phyrexian in addition to other types. Yes, it's 7 mana. No, it doesn't have Convoke. However, mid-game, like I mentioned before, plenty of rocks. This is cheaper than the red version. And you get to pick a creature or planeswalker from every graveyard. Not from the 10 cards that are milled, but from the graveyard itself. And the ability to mill 10 means you're probably going to get something in there. So for 7 mana, you could very easily get like 20 mana worth of creatures, including your own stuff, put straight into play. This card seems really powerful. And if you're playing something like this and nobody at the table has any way to do a counter spell, it's probably going to get rather absurd rather quickly. So that's why I think this is number 5. When it comes to new cards that are going to make a serious staple move into Commander. Now, moving on, next we have number 4, Complete the Circuit. So in blue decks or decks that have a blue ability, 1 blue and 5, it does have Convoke. It says you may cast sorcery spells this turn as though they had flash. When you next cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell twice. You may choose new targets for the copies. This has lots of potential, especially since it has Convoke. We also mentioned all the rock mana that we have. It's pretty easy to get to 6. Now, if you can manage to fire this bad boy off and put some kind of time walk effect onto the stack, it can be just insane. Because for 2 mana to get 3 turns is just bonkers. And remind you, it starts for 1 blue. So if you're playing a 3-color deck and blue's one of the colors, you got a lot of creatures of some kind, or maybe you make tokens or some silly shenanigans like that. If you make 5 tokens for 1 blue and then 5 more mana, 2 blue, and 3 for the Time Walk. You could, for 6 mana and 2 cards, take 3 turns. It's pretty absurd. And that's probably not even me going all out there. Like, there's other silly shenanigans that can go on with this. We're talking things as light as Lightning Bolt in some people for 9, all the way up to, I don't know, maybe Fireball on one person for 5, 3 times for 15, or any other silly shenanigans that we've seen go on that when a spell gets cast, you're like, yeah, I would love to have that 2 more times. So I think this is going to be a pretty spectacular card for Commander, and especially for Commander decks that love the combo and do those shenanigans. It's definitely going to be a thing. Because remember, in Commander, you can play all kinds of silly stuff. Dark Ritual, Channel, Fireball, all kinds of mana-making spells, just absurd. So, that's number 4. Moving on, next we have number 3. We have Sea Double. Nothing better than a copy spell or a spell that copies that can't be copied. It's kind of like a qualifier for your qualifier. Remember that? Damn, too old. Anyway, too soon. 2 blue and 2 for an instant. Choose one. If an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, you get both. So either you get copy target spell, you may choose new targets for the copy, or create a token that's a copy of target creature. If they have 8 or more cards in their graveyard, do both. For 4 mana, you can literally copy their commander, which is probably some silly shenanigans going on regardless, and copy whatever silly shenanigans spell they're trying to get off as well. Hey, nice 8 mana at the end of your turn, you just cast a draw 6 cards. Guess what? I'm going to copy that too and copy your commander for 4 mana. How's that feel? And because I've done that, I still have mana open. So now I'm going to counter your spell after mine resolves. Yeah, like there's so much going on here. I don't see how blue decks don't play this. Because also, too, like the Pillow Fort shenanigan diplomatic stuff you can do with this. Hey, I can cast this spell. It's not going to kill everything. It only does 4 damage to everything. Well, I tell you what. You cast it. I'll copy it. It's 8 damage to everything. We all win. So there's tons of ways this card can be used. And especially since it says if an opponent. So it doesn't mean every opponent. It doesn't have to be the opponent you target their spells. If one opponent has 8 cards in their graveyard, both sides of this goes off. It's like casting Fort twice. It's just crazy. And Vesuvian Doppelganger, a real popular card, it's 5 mana. It only does 1/2 of this card for 1 more mana. The versatility here is phenomenal. This is going to see lots of play in Commander. All right, next we have, moving on, number 2, Fairy Mastermind. That's right, I said it. This is Yuta Takanashi's World Championship card. Why will it see play in Commander? Because of the fact that it says right here, whenever an opponent draws their second card each turn, you draw a card. So think about it if you will. Mystic Remora. Rhystic Study. Hey, you going to pay the one to draw a card? No, you know what? I'm not going to pay the one to draw a card. Oh, you drew a card? Now guess what? I'm going to draw a card. Yeah, it takes 2 cards, but if you're going to cast spells anyway, and you don't want to pay the Rhystic Study, and you're going to let them draw cards, or someone else is going to let them draw cards, as soon as someone draws 2, you get to draw a card. It says whenever an opponent. So in one turn, if every opponent casts 2 spells, you just draw 3 cards. Rhystic Study or not, this is like half Rhystic Study, half anti-Rhystic Study. Plus it says for 4 mana, each player draws a card. Not that you're going to do a whole lot of that, but hey, a 2 mana 2/1 with flash and flying, and the ability to draw off your opponent's silliness of them drawing cards makes this just a hot card for Commander, and I don't see how it doesn't see play. And finally, number 1, coming in, Wrenn and Realmbreaker. You may say to yourself, why this card? Well, let's just say one thing here. Mana fixing's a thing in big decks, especially Commander decks, and for 3 mana, to have the ability of a Chromatic Lantern on it, that's like playing 2 Chromatic Lanterns, except this one can make 3/3 elemental creature tokens with vigilance and hexproof that you can't target. Plus, you can mill cards to get stuff done. And if you happen to get this thing high enough to make an emblem out of it from all your shenanigans, then it's really game on. Because if you -7 this and get your emblem, this is now a permanent in your graveyard, which you can then cast again. I don't know if you heard that, but on your turn, if this has 7 counters on it, you start off by putting this in your graveyard, and then proceed to recast it. And if you don't have the right mana because some weird things have happened in your life due to poor personal choice, tap your mana first while it produces any color mana, and then do it. And while you're at it, get the lands or whatever silly shenanigans has happened that's got your mana all jacked up 5 ways to Friday from your opponents, and start putting that stuff back on the battlefield too while you're at it. Like, this card is just, this is a Crucible of Worlds for everything in your commander deck, as long as it's not an instant or a sorcery. What more could you want in life? I just don't understand. And with Ichimor Gauntlet being out there now, and you can start stacking pre-counters on this, Proliferate's got even bigger. Like, this is definitely going to be the number one card to just flood the commander market. So get them while you can, because these things are going to be expensive, because eventually everybody's going to want one for every deck. So they'll be cheap to start with until people just buy them all up. So with that said, guys, that's my thoughts on Commander from March of the Machines and what we're expecting to see in the formats. So don't forget, like and subscribe. You already have. Thank you. I love you. More links in the description below if you want to help out with the channel. Until next time, be kind. And as always, I hope to see you across from the game table.